Hi there and welcome to Two Wheels, the show that brings you the very best in motorcycling. If you're a speed freak and a race circuit virgin, I'll be showing you how to pop your cherry because we're going track daying and I'm going to be taking my long-term GSXR 750 to Silverstone, which should be very nice. And in the rest of the show, in the quest for more power, Fran will be tweaking her pistons and valves at an engine tuning centre, all in the name of science. That only leaves our head-to-head, which this week is Honda's CBR 600 versus Kawasaki's ZX6. So, you've got yourself a serious sports bike, you've got yourself the leathers, the lid, the boots, the gloves, but there's something missing. After all, if you want to get the best out of your sports bike in nanny state Britain, it's very difficult unless A, you fancy losing your licence, or B, you fancy a spell inside as Mr. Big's mistress. No, what you need is a track day. The track day business is booming as riders all over the country are realising that the circuit is the only place to really cut loose on a big sports bike. So we've come to Silverstone's GP circuit on 100% Bikes track day. So for a few quid, you're in far less danger of getting hurt, you'll have more fun than a teenager in Amsterdam, and on top of that, you'll improve your riding tenfold. But before you get out on track, there's a little bit of preparation that's needed first. And we're not just talking about your bike here either, because you've got to get yourself firing on all cylinders. All this means is lay off the booze the night before. Track days and hangovers mix like arsonists and rocket fuel. Get yourself a good night's kip, and if the track's miles away, consider travelling up the night before to stay in a hotel so you're fresh as a daisy first thing. And whatever you do, don't forget breakfast. You're going to burn a lot of energy, so you'll need it. And don't forget to drink plenty of water as well, because dehydration will ruin your concentration. One final thing you're going to need is a driving licence. Doesn't matter how many points you've got, but most circuits these days will demand to see one before they'll let you out on track. Turning our attention to your bike, give it a good clean beforehand. This may sound a bit daft, but it will help you spot any loose screws, punctures and that sort of thing. Make sure your tyres and brake pads have plenty of meat left on them because they're going to get a right hammering, and sort your chain tension before giving it a good lube too. Not only will this ensure smooth running, but a dry chain can cost you a couple of mile an hour down the straights, and we don't want that. Talking of tyres, check your tyre pressures too. There's a lot of talk about tyre pressures for track days, but the basic rules are to run road pressures as recommended in your handbook for cool track days. For hot summer track days, drop your pressures by 3 or 4 psi at both ends. But if it's wet at any time, leave them on the road pressures. This will leave the tread pattern open so that it keeps dispersing the water. If you take a bit of air out, then it will close up a little as you put pressure on it. But remember, whatever you do, whenever you're checking your tyre pressures, do it when the tyres are cold. So with a clear head and a sorted bike, you'll want to get yourself to the track in plenty of time to sign on and get to the briefing. And if it's your first time, don't be put off by riders all over the place with race bikes, tyre warmers and that sort of thing. Oh, and don't think you're the only novice there either. Guys that look fastest rarely are, and you can bet there will be plenty of others in the same beginner's boat as you. When it comes to signing on, be realistic about your abilities. If you are a beginner, don't be afraid to join the steady group. But if you really know what you're doing, then do go for the fast group rather than lording it over slower riders in the intermediate group and spoiling their day.
The fast group and then the novice group will be the last ones on circuit.
Even if you have been to loads of track days, do go to the briefing because different organisers run things slightly differently. Plus, the track may have been changed since you were last there, and running off a circuit you know well because of a chicane you've never seen before could be very embarrassing. Well, that's the briefing over and done with, so join me in a moment when I'm going to be out on track with this lot. But for the meantime, here's Fran with a load of information on tweaking and tuning your engine for maximum performance.
Okay, picture the scene. You arrive on a track day on your gleaming GSXR 600. It looks gorgeous and you're beaming with pride. It's time to go out and you're expecting big things from your screaming rev factory. You look around and it seems to be a fair grouping of bikes. There are a few ZX6s, an R6 here and there, the odd CBR 600 buzzing around, and then you're out on the track. But hang on, what's this? You're going nowhere fast. All the other riders are screaming past you like you're on a 50. How embarrassing. Hang that head in shame. Now all this can be avoided and easily. All it takes is a bit of preparation and tinkering. So we've come to the home of bike tuning specialist Demon Tweaks in Wrexham to find out how. We've enlisted the help of Adi, who's going to talk us through some of the essentials of bike tuning. So Adi, we've got a lot of tyres here. What do we need?
For track day we need some track day tyres.
Good idea.
Firstly, the tyres that's come on the bike already. Whichever bike you've got, you can have your basic road tyres.
Right.
If you just look at the shape on that one,
Yeah.
you can see from your flat edge straight the way over is a nice rounded effect. So is your average road tyre. That'll probably last you 5,000 miles average use.
Right.
Going on to your track day tyres,
Yeah.
they're a different shape and they're a lot different compound.
Right.
You'll see from the shape of this one, you've got your flat edge and it goes straight over.
Very angular.
The reason being, your rider is going to spend a lot more time on the edge of the tyre.
Yeah.
That's where he's going to be.
Right.
So that's where you need the most of the grip.
Right. So that's a wet, and then we've got the.
This would be classed as a dry tyre as opposed to a wet tyre.
Right. So almost as slick as a cut slick.
It's as
Kind
close
of.
as a cut slick as you can get
Yeah.
road legal.
Yeah.
With this sort of tyre, as you can see, there's a lot flatter area. There's not a lot of grooves anywhere. So that's a good dry day track tyre. With this one, you would still, a lot of race services still demand this tyre as a control tyre,
Yeah.
but you've still got a good edge. There's still plenty of grip there,
Yeah.
even on a cool day.
Which brings me on to heat. How do you warm your
With-
tyres?
To start off on a track day, you would normally go out on cold tyres.
Yeah.
The bike's going to be a bit twitchy, you're a bit nervous. If you try and push too much, the front's going to go.
Yeah.
That's when it comes to cold tyres. You can stop that or assist it by using tyre warmers. You put them on 30-40 minutes before your session. That way, when you go out on lap 1, you go into turn 1, you've got hot tyres,
Right.
which means you're up to temperature straight away and you're nice and sticky.
And how much would a set of those cost you then?
You're looking for about £200 to £300 depending on which mate you go for, but they're worth the money.
If you want to win the race, you've got to warm your tyres.
Yeah.
That's tyres done. Let's move on to bodywork. Right, Sadie, this is my new bike, I wish. It's cost me an absolute fortune. What happens if I drop it?
It costs you a fortune all over again.
I knew you were going to say that. So what do I do?
You'd replace as much as you can with aftermarket parts. For instance, the bodywork, the lights, your mirrors. You would take everything possibly off that you could.
That sticks out and could damage.
Yeah, anything that you could break. For instance, the bodywork, you'd replace the whole front end and the screen with an aftermarket one.
Right.
You would use a little clock holder such as this one, whereas you've got a big instrument panel at the front,
Yeah.
you would just use this one. That one will cost you about £500, this will cost you £100. This will hold your tacho and your water, which is all you really need for a track day.
Now, it makes a big difference saving that. What happens with my back end? How much would that cost me to replace?
About the same again.
500 or
Whereas
600 quid.
we can do your replacement seat unit,
Yeah,
identical to the standard one,
yeah.
bolt straight on, £100.
A big difference. And can you tell me what I'm supposed to do with that?
That's your new seat.
It's very attractive, very comfy. So basically, what happens with my tank?
The tank, you would just run the standard tank for a basic track day.
So there's nothing I can do about that then?
Not on the tank, be careful.
Just don't drop it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Sadie. I think that's about all we can digest in part 1, but do stay with us because in part 2, I should be getting some more tuning tips from the Demon Tweaks guys.
Thanks for that, Fran, and welcome back to our track day here at Silverstone, where I have to say we have been very lucky because not only do we have the full GP circuit to ride, but as well as that, it looks like the weather's drying out. Anyway, having done I don't know how many track days, I'm here to just have a laugh with my new GSXR 750 and try out the new tyres that I've stuck on. But things can be a little different for a first timer. To help bring you that first track day experience firsthand, I'd like you to meet a friend of mine, Dave Rossiter. So then, Dave, how long have you been riding motorcycles?
23 years.
23 years on the road.
On the road, 23 years since I was 17.
And any breaks in that period?
Little ones, but not much.
Right, okay. And then what about competition? You've done a bit of that as well, haven't you?
I did 14 years of motocross racing,
Yeah.
right up to British Championship standard.
Plenty of time getting muddy then.
Great time, great time.
And you're quite a handy mechanic as well, aren't you?
Done a bit, yeah. I did 2 years with Mervyn after I gave up racing.
Was that in GPs?
That was in Motocross GP.
Yeah.
Then I did European Supermonos with John Crawford,
Yeah.
and went over to the island with Jim Moody
Very
on
good.
Supermono.
distinguished CV, but in all this vast array of riding experience, have you ever ridden a motorcycle on a track?
No.
Well, no time like the present. You best go and get yourself ready.
Okay, mate.
Now, I know he looks dead cool, calm and collected, but I can tell you, on the inside, that man is a quivering bag of jelly. We'll see how he gets on. With any track day, it's always best to start slow and build up. After all, you've got the whole day to play with, plus it's always a bonus to take both yourself and your bike home in one piece. So for that first session of the day, don't even think about the speed. Use it as a chance to find out where the track goes, or to remind yourself if it's a place you've been to before, and just get your head into gear, get up to speed with the day and feel your way around. After this, take a rest and then you can begin adding speed in your later sessions. Even so, always take the first 3 laps steadily. You'll need these to warm your tyres, suspension and motor, and to get yourself into the groove. Well, we've had our first couple of sessions today, and it's fair to say I'm having an absolute ball on my GSXR. And if you want to know about the tyres, the Pirelli Diablo coursers I've got on here are actually stickier than the high sports that I had on before. Anyway, enough of that, because it's time to see how our first timer's doing. Now then, Dave, I'm having a laugh out there. How about you?
Excellent, brilliant. Never experienced anything like this.
So, would it be fair to say that at the beginning of the day you were a little bit nervous?
No, very nervous.
Very nervous.
Yeah. I don't know why, but very nervous.
Even though you've spent a lot of time around racetracks?
Yeah, but I've always been this side of the fence, haven't I? Not that other side.
Ah, so now that you got out there, how did it feel?
It felt great. At least I'm learning the other side of it as well. I'm going to understand, I think, a bit more.
I've got to say, after those first 3 warm-up laps, I could see the grin in your helmet was a mile wide.
Just, I don't know, you just don't know why. You just come in with this grin factor, don't you? You know.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, a bit more?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
We're going to get to it then. We'll see you in a moment. As the day goes on, as long as you remember the golden rules of staying relaxed and remembering to breathe at all times, it's amazing how many people will hold their breath through fast corners. The world is your oyster, and it's party time. If you're struggling with the track at all, or you just want to improve your riding, grab yourself an instructor. All track day companies have them, they don't cost any extra to use, and for some reason, a lot of people don't seem to use them so much, so they may not be busy, and they'll probably be glad that you're talking to them at all. If, on the other hand, your pace is getting quicker, you'll be wanting to overtake slower riders. Just remember, this isn't a race day, so fairing bashing is out of the question. And it's the overtaking rider's responsibility to make a clean pass, so hold off if you're uncertain about making one. Well, that's it for part 1, but join us again in part 2 when Honda's CBR6 and Kawasaki's ZX6 will be going head to head and you'll be deciding the verdict. Oh, and I'll be back out on the circuit. See you then. Welcome back to Two Wheels, where I'm here at Silverstone having some track day fun. But while I wait patiently for my next session, here's the head-to-head between the CBR6 and the ZX6 to see what came out on top. Each week we take 2 bikes, 100 bikers, and from their feedback, we determine a winner. Honda's new CBR 600 is billed as their sportiest 600 ever. The silky smooth linear power delivery with no lag anywhere is absolutely superb. And Kawasaki's latest 600 is also a sports bike with a capital S. The new engine doesn't quite have the flexibility of its predecessor, as the mid-range has been sacrificed slightly for more top-end and overall power, while Honda have been concentrating on mass centralisation for their bike, and the CBR has definitely benefited from it in the handling department. The CBR is also the more compact of the two, but feels roomy enough at the same time. Bit of a TARDIS effect, really. Out on bumpy roads, the Kawasaki is as stiff and frisky as a stag party at a lap dancing club. But put it on a smooth track and it is inspiringly well planted. You can carry good corner speed and vast lean angles on both of these. But what do the punters think?
Out of the CBR 600 and the ZX6, I would pick the CBR 600 really good to me, all-rounder, and I can do everything I wanted to do. With the other bike, it's more the one way, it's more sporty type, you know what I mean? So you can do a lot more on a CBR, I think.
Out of the CBR6 and the ZX6, probably pick the ZX6 for the just overall styling and looks of it. I'd say between the CBR 600 and the ZX6, I'd prefer the CBR 6, basically because of the looks of the CBR 6, handling, better all-round performance. I'd go for the Honda.
The Honda has a hot new look, but on the downside it's going to be as common as muck as everybody and his dog will rush out and buy one. The new ZX6 has been given a sharper style compared to the old version, whereas the old one was Mar Walton, then the new one is Cruella de Vil. Nasty. Honda are renowned for build quality, and the new CBR 600 looks as solid as a rock. The only thing that's a bit of a downside is that under-seat silencer, which means strapping luggage on is going to be very difficult or may boil your bungees. As for the Kawasaki, it's also very well put together, and that slick gearbox is truly excellent. The only downside is it's a little hard to find neutral. As for long-term reliability, they're both too new to know exactly yet, but they're running pretty well so far. The Honda is a track bike with road-going comfort. The Kawasaki is a track bike out and out. What a decision. Which one would you take? Honda, 52%. Kawasaki, 48%. Well, it's a close run vote there, but as you can see, the Honda just pips the edge because I guess it's a slightly better finished machine. Personally though, I'd still have to take the green Kawasaki. Well, I reckon that's as close a head-to-head as we're going to see all series. Personally, I would have loved to have seen the Kawasaki take the honours, but the Honda just aced it there at the end. Anyway, from that, it's now time to go over to Fran, who's back in the wild world of tuning.
In part 1 we looked at tyres and bodywork, and now we're going to avert our attention to suspension and brakes. Talk us through it, AD.
Right, on this part I've got here, this is the best suspension we could put on it. Unfortunately, something like this you're looking at £1,500.
Goodness, do I need that?
Not to start off with. What I would suggest you do to start off with on your track bike is change the fork springs, put some fork fluid in there. That will stiffen the front end up. I would say about 6-7% will make the front end handle a lot better.
Right, and how much are we talking?
About £80 for those. So
Doesn't have the same appeal though, I must say.
No. But they would go in your original internals, it would work with all the original stanchions, etc.
Right.
To save you a little bit of money, which you could put into a shock.
Absolutely, and how much was that set me back?
The shock for the rear of this, you're looking at £400-500.
Not too bad.
You would feel more benefit from changing the shock as opposed to putting the forks on to start off with.
Right.
Because this would give you a lot more feel from the back end of the bike.
Right.
Which would help you to steer in a lot quicker, hold the line. So this is where you want to be spending your money.
Right, so that's a good piece of kit then, you recommend that?
Also, I would go for a steering damper. This will stop the bike from twitching at high speed. A lot of bikes now, they're putting so much power at the back wheel, makes the front very flighty, and you can get twitches coming out of the corner. You can tighten or let this off, depending on your riding style, or your arm strength, etc.
Right.
What's at the track?
That looks a bit flash, that one. Is that quite an expensive one?
They are. Well, this is one of the top of the range ones. They start from about £250-300.
Yeah, right, that's not too bad.
But again, with the setup we just discussed, this will make the bike quicker, handle a lot safer, and your lap times are going to drop.
Reap the benefits. Now, I may want to stop occasionally, which brings me to my brakes. These look a bit flash.
Yeah, well this is, again, you've picked the top of the range equipment. Something like this, £300 for it to replace the master cylinder. Most production bikes nowadays, just for production racing or track days, the master cylinder is pretty good to start off with.
Yeah.
But what I would suggest to you is to go for the brake lines and more down this side of the bike.
Yeah.
Instead of brake lines, you're looking at £60-70 for the whole bike. Then to go into some pads, depending on whether you're riding more on the road or more on the track. I would generally suggest to keep two different sets of pads. If you're going to ride to the circuit on the bike, you can take them with you, but it is a bit of a pain. What you'd be best going for is like a fast road pad. Something like these where they're good on the design for the road, but they've still got plenty of heating them for the track.
Right.
Your general road pads won't really cut it on a track. You'll just get them too hot and they'll glaze over. And you'll lose a lot of feel on them.
What about track pads then?
The track pads, this is if you're just on a track on their own. Once you get a bit more experience, would you recommend a full going track pad? This, you would tend to find this pad in a World Superbike, British Superbike. A lot of production racers use the pads where they can only change the pad as opposed to the caliper.
Right.
Or you could change the whole setup like we've got here, but you're looking for another £1,200.
Oh, stop it now. It's an expensive game, isn't it, this track day stuff? So that's about it then. We're a bit covered then, aren't we, on the suspension and the brakes? Marvellous. Thanks, AD.
Okay.
Well, that's after that melee of information, your bike will be extremely competitive and perhaps more importantly, safer than it ever was. Back to you, Wazza.
Having had a very pleasant but not too substantial lunch, well, as you can see, I'm still finishing mine, Dave and I are back out on the circuit. In fact, his group's out next. In the meantime, however, I'm going to have a word with Paul, who runs 100% bikes. So then, Paul, after an excellent spin on your homemade paddock bike here, what I'd like to know is, how long have you been organising track days?
Gosh, it's probably 5 years now, yeah.
And who would be, if there is such thing, who would be your typical customer?
There isn't one, there isn't. We draw from a very, very broad spectrum of people, and that is the great thing about track days. You get to meet all sorts of people.
And whether it's first-timers or anybody else, any common mistakes you see a lot of?
Over-enthusiasm on cold tyres. Absolutely.
Absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we're not going to see any more of that, so back to the play.
You're welcome.
Thanks very
Bye-bye.
much. To be honest, track days have to be one of my favourite ways to spend a day. You can go as screaming yahoo as you like in very safe surroundings and without any worry of the long arm of the law intervening. And for someone like me who's rather lacking in self-control when it comes to restraining myself on a fast bike, it's an excellent way to get rid of the pent-up frustrations of dawdling about on our roads all the time. I could do this all day long. Oh, hang on a minute. I am. We're back in the pits now, and Dave's still out on the track with an enormous smile plastered across his face. But in the meantime, I'm going to have a chat with a few of the other people who are here today.
I've only actually done Donington and Silverstone, and I'm actually really enjoying Silverstone. Nice, fast circuit.
Well, I started track days last year, and I've been riding for quite a long time. I never got really into it, just scared of dropping the bike. And well, did one track day, I loved it. I bought a track bike since, and I'm doing probably 10, 15 this year.
I'm in the intermediates. It's the first time here to this circuit. Don't really know my way around. I thought I'd start off with there. I like to take the bike home in one piece, no scratches, scrapes, just the way it got here.
Sadly, our track day here at Silverstone has almost come to an end, but I have to say it has been an awesome day out. I couldn't possibly have thought of a better way to have spent my time. All that's left for me to do now is to get in one more session.